today we're going to be talking about idioms, and just to remind you that every idiom that we talk about today will be written in the slides in red, and on the handout we will have a definition of it. Okay, so don't panic. You don't need to write them down, because when you receive your certificate, you will receive all the idioms on a sheet, and some other exercises and things we're doing, and some very useful links too. Okay, so shall we start on the first slide, Sean?
Let's start.
Okay. I think everyone will agree, okay, that idioms are some of the most fun things. You can have a lot of fun with them. Okay, so I think mainly the most important thing is that they just make people smile. Things like "it's raining cats and dogs," even though, to be honest, I don't know if we use it so often in real life, but it does make students smile. Okay, Sean, do you want to do the next point?
And okay, so yes, it gives them some useful language. So a lot of idioms rely on metaphor, and it can be really useful. You're teaching two sets of vocabulary at the same time if you teach idioms properly. So in this case, from it's raining cats and it's no, let's say from the bottom of your heart. So they have to know what a heart is from the bottom, and they have to know that it means sincerely. So there's a lot packed into one idiom, which and if you expand that to teaching 7 idioms in one lesson, it can be really valuable for them.
And I think there are also some things you can put in conversation or in writing, and if you use them well, they really show your mastery of the language. Okay, although you need to be careful, because if you use them incorrectly, either inappropriately, or you change a couple of words, they can actually have the opposite impression. Okay. One of the things here, we've looked at some exercises that you could even do at the end of a class. Okay, so you could use them as a reward occasionally, because they are generally fun things to teach, fun things to learn. Okay.
Okay, and they can be added as extra for intermediate plus lessons on other things. So if you have a lesson focusing on animals, for example, then you can add a selection of idioms from that involve animals. So
just as the one we've got there, it's raining cats and dogs.
Have it's raining cats and dogs, but you could also say that something is like water off a duck's back.
As blind as a bat. Yep.
Blind as a bat. Yes.
Okay. We've got this.
We've got one there. Thank you, Gaetano.
Okay.
Okay. So this is actually a really good transition, because now we're going to ask you, what are your favorite favorite English idioms?
Okay. So put some in the chat. Okay. Remember, they're not always necessarily full sentences. They can even just be an expression. Okay. So you go, okay, to buy a pig in a poke, a hot potato. Okay. For example, that's one that I was thinking of. Okay. So a hot potato, a controversial issue, things like this.
The apple of my eye is really nice as well. I like that.
Your bananas.
Is that just insulting us now, or is it?
Okay. To buy sight unseen. Yep. To be as happy as a clam. Break a leg. Okay.
Put your foot in something, or to put your foot in your mouth. Right?
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, you put your foot in it.
Okay. Couch potato. Break a leg. Yep. Yeah, and a lot of these, obviously, a lot of these things, for example, a piece of cake, unless you know what the person's intending, it's going to be completely obscure. Okay. If I say it's a piece of cake, to mean that it's very easy, it's going to be very confusing. Okay. I hope during this webinar that not only will you get some good ideas for teaching idioms, but I hope you actually learn some idioms here, and I hope everyone can notice the ones we're sharing. Okay?
It looks like you have a good store of them in any case. So something that we also wanted to ask, are there some idioms that are cross-lingual? Do they have an Italian version and an English version, and which ones are they?
Yeah, so I think a lot of them, sometimes the animals change that we use. Sometimes it has a similar meaning, but it's a different animal or different thing. Sometimes they translate almost exactly. For example,
lots of the ones that are biblical have
exactly. In fact, I was about to say, like, you can say things like a black sheep, okay, which I'm pretty sure you say also in Italian, okay. But for example, to kill two birds with one stone, I think in Italian you use like fava, okay, or a bean, pretty much, okay. They don't use a stone to catch two, okay. So it can be fun also to get students to translate their Italian ones, okay. There we go, okay. To catch two pigeons with one fava, okay, one fava bean, okay, which obviously it's the same concept, but it's a totally different metaphor. Our one, I guess, is a little bit more violent, okay.
Yeah, thank you. I was really trying to work that one out with my very shaky command of Italian.
Okay. Anyway, so do you want to read these, Sean?
Yes.
You can go.
Okay. So our objectives for this webinar is that we hope teachers will be able to effectively present idioms to students in an engaging and accessible way. So we have a number of activity ideas that we can use to bring idioms into the classroom. So we use these games and activities not only to introduce, but also to reinforce the association between idioms and their meanings, because this is where a lot of students might get stuck. And finally, to exploit how native speakers make mistakes with idioms for further practice. So there are a lot of common ways that idioms are not used correctly, even by native speakers. And personally, I thought that this could be used in a classroom setting in an interesting way. So, Josh, I believe you are starting next, and it's
okay. So this is a picture I found that's really fun. Okay, that unfortunately I can't put this in the handout, but I have provided a link to it in the handout. Okay, this apparently has 27 different figures of speech here. Okay, so if you want, try to write some in the chat if you notice any of them. I'm not going to wait to get all 27 though. Okay, but basically what I'm going to look at in this part of the webinar is the fact that the idioms are really highly visual. Okay, not all of them, but almost all of them you can visualize in some way. Okay, and what this can do is that if we get students to draw them, or students looking at other people's drawings, or you have a picture like this, maybe there's a few too many here, okay, for students, but it gives them a visual handle, it gives them something to remember them by, okay. And obviously you can also introduce new vocabulary with this, okay, vegetables, animals, parts of the body, okay, things like that, exactly, okay. Yep, don't put all your eggs in one basket, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying not to say them as I see them.
Okay. A few of them even, there's a few on the website that I link to that actually are contested, whether people might have just been something by accident, okay. Kick the bucket is another one. Yep. Okay. Anyway, I've put a link in the handout with them all, but Sean can reveal them now. Okay.
Okay, so we have
okay.
One of my favorites, which is an earworm. It's a song that or a tune that you can't get out of your head.
Yep. Okay.
That one? That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So something like that. I mean, these sort of pictures, I don't know if I'd recommend using that picture necessarily, because it might push your students a bit too far. Okay. But if we go on to the next slide, then you'll see we've got a sort of activity, okay, a drawing activity. That is, okay, so you could put students in pairs, okay, and you could give each one a different English idiom, okay, with an associated meaning, okay. So what it means is you would give one pair of students as cool as a cucumber, okay, and the meaning calm and composed, okay. The students have to draw a cartoon-like picture, okay, to illustrate the literal meaning of the idiom. So here, what's important is you're not really getting them, or not necessarily asking the students to represent the meaning of it, just the literal meaning. So they're not drawing someone a cucumber that is calm and composed, but here you can see it's just a cucumber with ice, okay. They should also write something in context, okay. Obviously you'll need to try to correct them with this, because you need to be very careful, okay, with not changing them, using the correct tenses and things like this, okay. And then when they finished it, they can present it to the class, okay. Again, I guess you could do it with the students guessing, or just actually presenting it to the other students, okay. As I said before, not all idioms are totally visual, okay, or easy to picture, okay. So it's not always fantastic. You might have to choose them, okay. Another one too, like as someone said, yeah, miming them might be a good idea too, okay. The key here is really choosing the idioms that you want to do. So, make sure that you're not just taking a list of idioms without actually thinking, can they be drawn, okay.
Yes.
And
It's
then
really good for memory, but then you do have to do the work to put it in context.
Yeah, exactly. And so writing it up, things like that, so that each pair actually can present to the other people in the class. So instead of just learning their one, they're actually learning a few. Obviously, you could also give each student, a few idioms, and they can choose one, okay, or two if they want, okay.
Okay.
Another one that's quite nice is a guessing game activity. Okay, it's a little bit like some other games that you've probably played or you've seen played, where you give different definitions. So
this is called my bluff to me.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's another way of playing this is, okay, we have to hit the nail on the head. Okay.
That's
now, you could give an example. Okay, you really hit the nail on the head when you said the team is lacking a strong defense. What does it mean? So is it 1, 2, or 3? Okay. If you think you know, put it in the chat. Okay.
So people are way ahead of you, Nadia.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Anyone else want to guess?
We're getting all 2s.
Okay, we're getting all 2s because
you're all very clever. Okay. That's correct.
The key to making these is you need to make sure that it could possibly go into that context. Okay, so you can't, you said something offensive when you said the team is lacking a strong defense. Could be possible as well. It's not in this case. Okay. How this can work is it can be really good because you give the student the real meaning. Okay, you describe the problem exactly, but then it's a bit of a writing exercise too, producing some language to think about what could be some other meaning. So not only are they learning that expression, but you can actually get them to do some writing, produce some other language. And obviously it's a fun game when you get a pair, okay? So for example, you divide the students into pairs, okay? Give each pair a different idiom, its definition, and an example, okay? To help you, just remember that if you Google idioms, they'll probably, and I've got a lot of links in the handout, there's a lot of websites where they'll give you the meaning and the definition too, okay? Might be best to do ones that are substantially different in Italian. Don't, it's not one that's exactly the same because it'll be too easy, okay? Each pair has to write 2 alternative definitions, remembering that trying to make sure the students don't always put the real one as number 1, try to get them to shuffle it, something like this, okay? And then going round, each pair presents the definitions, the different definitions, and they have to decide or vote on which one it is. Okay. Obviously, finally, you're still going to have to reaffirm the fact that only one of them is correct. Okay, so you're going to have to, in the end, get the students to to choose the correct one, and then maybe you could even have a follow-up activity that would be they could find another example. They could even act out an example of in a little dialogue, giving someone an opportunity to use this.
Yes, put it into a situation so that you're absolutely clear that they have the correct meaning.
Yeah, so I think there's doing it visually or doing these guessing is the first step. I think the last step should always be putting it into action. Okay, because unless you can use them in an appropriate situation, then they're not really going to be too useful for you. Okay, but they're great little things to use whenever you want. Okay, if their situation arises, using it can make people around you smile. Okay?
Apologies, I jumped a bit.
No. Okay. What I thought also is the fact that a lot of structures that are quite common in English, okay, for example, comparatives of equivalence, conditionals, imperatives, or a lot of phrasal verbs, okay, can be found in a lot of idioms. Okay, so why not, when you're teaching these comparatives of equivalence as adjectives, okay, you can use them. You can use some of these expression. It's amazing that, particularly with animals, okay, how many there are as blind as a bat, okay, things like this, okay. You can use them particularly, so some things like as good as gold, as safe as houses, as quiet as a mouse, as dumb as a bag of hammers. Okay, I like that one. Okay. Conditionals, okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. A strange one there that always uses this informal or almost slang form of ain't, okay, negative of like it isn't or aren't. Okay. If a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing well. Okay. If you can't beat them, join them. Okay. Imperatives, okay, particularly negative ones. Okay. I was trying to think of some affirmative ones, but they're mostly negative. Okay. And then also a lot of phrasal verbs. Okay. To get on, to emphasize two people get on really well, we say they get on like a house on fire. I was actually teaching this to someone yesterday, and they were quite surprised that this is actually a positive thing to say about a relationship, not a negative thing. Okay.
Yes. There are a few that are slightly inappropriate with that, but yes.
And to get away with murder, okay, which gets the idea of to get away with a crime, but it uses it in a metaphorical way. Okay.
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That means if something is working correctly, leave it alone.
Yeah, it's sort of a way of saying, if it's okay, it doesn't need to be perfect as long as it's working well. Okay. Again, there's something we're looking at the end, that it is true that a lot of these are not necessarily normal grammar. Okay, that you'll find, for example, we have ain't broke. We generally say if it isn't broken. Okay.
Often idioms are playing with the language, so they turn into non-standard English.
Exactly. Okay, and they sometimes have even derived from an older style of English. There's a lot you can find originally in Shakespeare. Okay, and we still use them in some forms, or the Bible. Okay, or the translation of the Bible, the King James version. Okay, and then we have ones particularly with animals and food, as I was saying before. Okay, as blind as a bat, to get the lion's share, to smell a rat, as you can see in the picture there. Okay, a couch potato. I think someone put that in the chat before. Okay, and you can say about a person that they're full of beans, full of energy. Okay.
Yeah, it's slightly unintuitive because if I were full of beans, I would be sat on the sofa.
Yeah,
That's the elephant in the room. Nice one.
exactly. Okay.
Okay. So, as I mentioned at the very start, idioms are so complicated and so tricky that sometimes native speakers get them wrong. So, how can we use this in an English learning classroom? I thought of one review activity, which would be to present some of these genuine mistakes to a class and get students to correct them. You see lists of these mistakes online, so you don't have to scratch your head and try to think of some here. But for example, this is not a correct idiom. You can burn that bridge when you come to it. There's one word that needs to change. Can anyone tell me which word and what that you must change it to? Oh, okay. The first one to get it correct was Elisabetta. Burn must be cross. Okay, exactly. Well done. So you can cross that bridge when you come to it, meaning you can do that task, or you can worry about that task when it's or situation when it's there.
This one, I think, as Sean's probably about to point out, is that it's a combination of two. Okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Sorry.
Next slide. Don't steal my thunder. Okay. So in this case, it is there are mixtures of idioms. So from the previous one, even if you lose your job, it's best not to with the people working there, as you may meet them later in your professional life. So how could you complete this with the other idiom mixed in? We give you 5 seconds, and then it's like cross the bridge. It's really close. This might help.
There we have one.
There we go. Okay, so it's best not to burn your bridges with the people working them. So excellent. So we had, excuse me, you can cross that bridge and then burn your bridges, which is why maybe some native speakers get them confused. Okay,
this is something you'll often find in comedies. People, one character who will often combine these idioms in the incorrect way.
Yes, I am not a sitcom writer. I have a very lame joke where I combine the idioms. It's not rocket science and it's not brain surgery, by saying, oh, it's not rocket surgery. Okay, so here are a couple more examples. It was a blessing in the skies. That's wrong. What could it be?
There we have it. Okay. Yep.
Nip it in the butt.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, that's fast.
Gaetano's on fire.
It's a dog-eat-dog world. Oh, I was relying on you, Gaetano. Anyone else? Dog-eat-dog world is very similar. It sounds like the real one.
Oh, very
there we
good.
Go. There's
dog
someone.
Dog. Yep.
Okay. So I think at least someone got all of these correct. I'll just confirm it. So blessing in the skies is a blessing in disguise. Nip it in the butt is nip it in the bud. And a dog-eat-dog world, which sounds like a nice world, but the opposite is true. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's very competitive. It's very ruthless. So yes, some of these make a little bit more sense when they're correct. So nip it in the buds. The bud is the beginning of a flower. So you stop it before it grows. A dog-eat-dog world, it's in this case, it's competitive and ruthless rather than nice. Although your neighbor's dog, I think.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, my neighbor's dog is going a bit crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so as you can see, I've tried to add context to each one to make sure that the meaning is demonstrated in these. And I'm thinking of these as reviews. Okay, and in fact that's what it says. So if after you teach your idioms to a class, look up common mistakes with them and turn it into a review game like this, and you saw it was quite quick fire with that. Okay, another idea that I had was there are a number of parables or stories with a moral that use idioms or proverbs. The most famous and the most exploited is Aesop's fables. So there are a number of ways to incorporate these into a lesson that are good for presenting idioms that are new, and also for reviewing and leading into a nice writing task, I thought. So in this case, we have the story of the wind and the sun. So first of all, I'll pause for a second and get you to read the story. And can you tell me the moral? If at all possible, can you think of an idiom or a proverb that can demonstrate the moral, have the same meaning? Okay, so cast the first stone. That's not quite what it's getting at. To be in the same boat. Oh, I haven't seen that one, Francesca, but it generally that demonstrates the meaning. So well done. That's not what I've got.
Don't worry about raising your hand. Just write it directly in the chat.
Yes, please. Yeah, just write it into chat. So Francesca's got essentially the meaning. The gentler touch motivates people to do what you want. Yes, well put, Claudia. Okay, so here is an idiom or a proverb. You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. So it's better to be nice to people and they'll do what you want. Okay, so you can find a number of these Aesop's fables. I put them in the handout. I put the link to the website in the handout. And they tend to have a proverb as a moral at the end. So it can be a really nice way to introduce a complicated idiom. However, after a lesson on different idioms, you could extend this and make it into a writing task that could be quite fun for students who are creative. So I'm going to reveal the first idiom. Does anybody know what that image demonstrates? Yes, someone said it as their favorite idiom at the start. I remember. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Okay, so you could have a story about a chef who needs a new signature dish, and he asks all of his friends to come around and help him. However, he asks so many people to add salt or mix in some pepper and extra herbs. Someone put a whole lemon in there that it turned out to have completely distracting flavors and was not very good. So you could get students to really stretch their creativity with this, and so talk about the origin story of these proverbs. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. This could be some kind of horror story, which could be appropriate for Halloween coming up. Okay, we have another one. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So in that case, I think that's very similar to the grass is always greener on the other side, but kind of has more of an emphasis on appreciate what you have.
This could be useful too if you're training students for the Cambridge for Schools exams, where they have a story in the writing. So it could help with things like narrative tenses. Okay.
Yes, and they do get a very short prompt about the story, so so this could make it a bit more fun. So hang on. So the improvement of the egg.
No, that was, I think, the way they say it in Italian. Okay, so bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I think it's they use a similar metaphor, but
okay, so it's today and tomorrow rather than
yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So let us conclude. So as we have been emphasizing throughout this, we should always present idioms with an example of their use, put them in context, and make very clear what the meaning is. And
yeah, I think what we can say, one thing is that not just an example, but a lot of these activities could also be followed up with some sort of dialogues, where the students have to write a dialogue to give a situation where it could be used, because you know, you really need to show them in context. It's not enough just to get a definition, because they're often quite specific. Okay, and I find even in Italian you might have a similar expression, but it's not used in exactly the same way. So I think finding examples, as I said, I've given a lot of websites in the handout that you'll see where they give you a good example. A lot of them actually have an idiom of the week, and they actually have a video dialogue. Okay?
which is another lovely thing for the class, an idiom, a lesson that you may want to focus on, or you may not. It's just a little treat for the students.
In fact, it reminds me a trattoria that I go to often in Naples, or it has Neapolitan idioms on each day. Okay, and so it might be a good sort of idea like that. Put an idiom on the blackboard, whiteboard, okay, before you start the lessons. Okay?
Yeah. And there was something that Josh alluded to earlier, that that grammar is often non-standard in a number of these idioms. So if I were to say waste not, want not correctly, I might say don't waste if you don't want something.
Exactly. Okay, and we say it was tongue in cheek. Okay, we probably say I had my tongue in my cheek, even though that one is obviously not really clear what it means unless you have the context. Monkey see, monkey do, and holier than thou. Holier than thou uses this antique form of you. Okay.
You say holier, I say holier. Okay.
I said sorry. Did I say holier? Yeah.
Holier. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, some slightly different accents for you to deal with there.
I think also this is an important point too, that you need to use them carefully. Okay, that it really needs to be clear to the student that they can't change them in any way, because changing them in any way, it sort of nullifies the significance of them, the way they actually can improve your fluency. Okay, using an idiom correctly really increases your esteem, let's say, in your amongst the people you're speaking to. But in the same way, changing a little part of it. Even a preposition, putting an article in there, okay, can absolutely ruin that. And instead of impressing people, it can often make them laugh. Just as we looked at, I'm going to burn my bridges when I come to it. Okay.
Okay. And Gaetano, is turn a blind eye, look the other way. I didn't know. I don't think that that there is a definite distinction that one is British English and one is American English. I think that
No, I don't think so. There are
at least the British know both.
Too, yeah, but there are a lot of ones that. In fact, this is the next point. I think. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Idioms can be very local. The British have, as you've just noted, that they have a completely different set of idioms to the Americans. Well,
yeah.
Not completely different. We share a
No,
lot.
I mean, I would say most are, the common ones are used all over. Okay, but certainly this is one thing about local language, not necessarily even dialect. But I'm from Australia, and so we'll have a lot in Australia that are, are joking expressions. Okay, and so I can't expect people to understand those if I'm using them in another country. Okay.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, I am.
Another point is that they're a lot of them derive from Shakespeare. You'll find them, the green-eyed monster, for example. Even though I don't think the concept is necessarily original with Shakespeare, the expression we say, the green-eyed monster, that is jealousy. Okay, so you'll find them. I remember there's a story about someone who, I think it's a false story, but someone who once went to see Hamlet and said it was just full of quotations,
Yes.
okay? Because so many expressions have come from Hamlet, particularly, but a lot of other Shakespeare plays. And to be honest, a lot of other books too, the expressions from Dickens, okay?
Yes.
Or other writers. Okay?
Yeah.
You'll find a lot of these.
Yeah, we mentioned the King James Bible. A lot of them originate in that. I probably wouldn't put that in your lessons, but it could be good to be aware of them. Okay. So many idioms are abbreviated. We don't say them because they become so common and so well known that we don't really complete them. So we have just this line.
Yeah, see if you know the end of these ones, okay, tell us what they are. So yes, we've got the first one, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Okay. But you understand that a lot of people won't necessarily complete that. Okay. We'll just say, when in Rome, and do something. Okay.
Yeah. And then if the shoe fits,
what can also be used if the cap fits. Okay.
So
very good. Okay, Michele, yes. Wear it. Okay.
I haven't seen the finish of Time Flies yet. Okay. One of my favorite mutations of these is so it started with "You are pulling my leg," and to mean that someone is playing a joke on you or lying in some way. But then people started saying, pull the other one. And so those two are linked.
Francesca's got it. Yep, time flies when you're
very good.
Yep.
Okay. And then it transformed more to pull the other one. It's got bells on, but this is a bit archaic.
Right. Yeah. So some of these they mutate, okay, and when it becomes more popular, people might just start saying half of it or changing them. Okay.
Okay. So I think we've got them all. We got hatch quite quickly.
So I think the point we're making there is that sometimes you might need to teach students that these expressions are often more common in the incomplete form than they are in the complete form. Okay.
Yeah. I never hear people say, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do."
Exactly.
When in Rome.
Time flies when you're having fun is the expression. Okay. Don't worry, all of these are in the handout. Okay. with the definition.
The Latin phrase tempus fugit.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just a few things to finish off with. Okay, first of all, a thank you. Remember that you'll receive your certificate of participation, which will also come with a handout. Anything you see in red in this webinar will have a definition there, okay, in the order that it was presented there, okay. I think
we had some very knowledgeable people there, so
okay.
If there's anything you did miss, then it will be in the handouts.
Yeah, I think also there's some really good links that even I got a bit caught up while I was making this webinar with Sean, and started going down a bit of a rabbit hole, another expression we say, okay. Got a bit caught up looking at these things, and so I think you'll find we're not the only people to have thought of these, integrating them into classes. There's a lot of ideas there, a lot of videos, a lot of podcasts, a lot of websites, okay, and even big ones with dictionaries of idioms, okay.
Oh, and there was someone I noticed who mentioned that they have used some of the material that we produced in previous webinars. I think there was a Sylvia who said that they presented some phrasal verb worksheets that they got from us. So thank you. It's really appreciated that we know that they're useful for you.
Yeah, please let us know if you do. Okay. The next one comes from a suggestion too, and in 2 weeks we'll be talking about, as everyone is talking about, the new James Bond film.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be looking
at 007. We say 007.
Yep. So using 007 in the classroom. What are some activities that we can use to get people interested in English, okay, by using James Bond? Yes. By the way, that webinar is going to have some really good handout material, including some photocopiable activities that you can, and worksheets that you can actually hand out for activities. So I'd really hope you join us then. And remember also, just tell anyone about this webinar too. Anyone's welcome. Okay?
Yes. Yeah. I apologize once again. For some reason, my virtual background has disappeared, so you can see into my room. Excuse me.
Okay. Well, I hope to see everyone in 2 weeks. Okay? Bye-bye.
Bye.